Schmidt is mildly obsessed by brothels. The literary kind, I mean. She's in a harem, a Turkish harem, in the Alhambra. Professor Schmidt's eyes took on the familiar academic gleam. The Alhambra was not... I know, but the reader won't. You are too concerned with accuracy here, Professor. That's why you can't write a popular dirty book, like me. I'm stuck for the moment, though. There have been too many popular books about Turks and harems. I'm trying to think of an original example of lust. It isn't easy. Professor Schmidt pondered the question. I didn't really want to hear his idea of what constituted original lust, so I said quickly, "But I distract you, sir. What did you want to see me about?" "Ah!" Schmidt leered again. He took his hand out of his pocket. It didn't hold a gun, of course. I hadn't expected a gun. I had expected an apple or a fistful of candy. Schmidt's pot belly is the result of day-long munching, but at the sight of what emerged, clasped tenderly in his pudgy fingers, I gasped. Don't be misled by the gasp. This is not going to be one of those books in which the heroine keeps shrieking and fainting and catching her breath. I'm not the fainting type, and not much surprises me. I'm not that old, still on the right side of 30, but my unfortunate physical characteristics have exposed me to many educational experiences. Let me make it perfectly clear that I am not kidding when I refer to my figure as unfortunate. I'm too tall, almost 6 feet. I inherited a healthy, rounded body from my Scandinavian ancestors, along with dark blue eyes and lots of blonde hair. I don't gain weight, so the said body is slender in what are supposed to be the right places. As far as I'm concerned, they're the wrong places. All you ugly ducklings out there, take heart. You are better off than you realize. When people love you, they love the important things about you, the things that endure after wrinkles and middle-age spread have set in, your brains and your personality and your sense of humor. When people look at me, all they see is a blown-up centerfold. Nobody takes me seriously. When I was younger, I wanted to be little and cuddly and cute. Now I'd settle for being flat-chested and myopic. It would save a lot of wear and tear on my nerves. Sorry about the tirade, but it isn't easy to convince people that you've got a brain when all they can see are curves and flowing blonde hair. Nor is it easy for a woman like me to get a job. Intellectual women mistrust me on sight. Intellectual men are just like all other men. They hire me, but for the wrong reasons. That was why meeting Professor Schmidt was such a break. Bless his heart, he's as innocent as he looks. He really thinks I am brilliant. If he were 6'4" and 30 years younger, I'd marry him. He beamed at me as he stood there in his spy costume, with his hand outstretched, and the object on his palm glowed and shimmered, almost as if it were smiling too. It was a pendant, made of gold richly embellished with filigree volutes and leaf shapes. 2 tiny gold figures of kneeling women supported the rigid loop through which a chain had once passed. All around the heavy gold rim were stones set in filigree frames, stones of green and red and pearly white. In the center was an enormous azure blue stone, translucent as water, contained in a crystal dome. There was a flaw in the central stone, a flaw that looked like a small, rough-hewn cross. A casual eye might have taken those stones for irregular, roughly polished chunks of glass. Mine is not a casual eye, however. "The Charlemagne talisman," I said. "Schmidt, old buddy, put it back, okay? You can't get away with it. Somebody is sure to notice it's gone." "You think I have stolen it?" Schmidt grinned even more broadly. "But how do you suppose I have removed it from the case without setting off the alarms?" It was a good question. The museum has a superb collection of antique jewelry, which is kept in a room built especially for it. A room that is one enormous vault. It is locked at night and watched continuously by 3 guards during the day. The alarm system is so delicate that breathing heavily on one of the cases will set bells ringing. And although Schmidt was one of the directors of the museum, neither he nor anyone else had authority to remove any of the historic gems from their cases, unless he was accompanied by 2 other museum bigshots and a whole battalion of security guards. "I give up," I said. "I don't know how you got it out, but for heaven's sake, put it back. You've been in trouble before with your weird sense of humor, and if they find out—" "Nein, nein!" He shook his head regretfully, abandoning his joke in the face of my obvious concern. "It is not stolen from the case. I have not taken it from there. It was found last night in the pocket of a dead man, in an alley near the Alter Peter." My mind fumbled with this information for a few moments. "This isn't the real brooch, then?" I said. "Aber nein, how could it be? I assure you, we would notice if the gem had been taken away. It is a copy. But, lieber Vicky, what a copy!" I took it from his hand. Even though I knew it was not the real gem, my touch was tentative and respectful. The more closely I examined it, the more my amazement grew. I had to take Schmidt's word for it that this wasn't the real talisman, but it certainly looked good, even to my trained eye. The goldwork was superb, each tiny filigree wire having been shaped and set with masterful skill. As for the jewels, even an expert gemologist would have had trouble deciding they were fakes without the use of the complex instruments of his trade. The original pendant had been made in the 9th century, long before modern techniques of faceting gemstones were developed. The rubies and emeralds and pearls on the golden frame were roughly polished and rounded. Cabochon is the technical term. The only precious stones that are cut in that antique style today are star rubies and star sapphires. The rounded shape brings out the buried star refraction. The cabochon-cut sapphire in the center of this jewel shimmered softly, but didn't glow with the buried fire of a faceted stone. I knew that it was not 1 sapphire, but 2, placed back to back, and that the flaw in the center was not a star or a natural blemish, but a sliver of the true cross, which made the jewel into a very expensive reliquary, or talisman. "You could fool me," I said, putting the pendant down on my desk blotter. "Come on, Schmidt, elucidate. Who was this character in whose pocket the pendant was found?" "A boom," said Schmidt, with a wave of his hand. "A what?" "A boom, a vagabond, a drunkard," Schmidt repeated impatiently. "Oh, a bum." "Did I not say so? He had no money, no passport, no papers of any kind. Only this, sewn with care into a secret pocket in his suit." "How did he die?" "Not violently," Schmidt said, with obvious regret. "There was no wound, of poison perhaps, or drugs. Horses, as they say. Or cheap hooch, or—" "Never mind," I said. When Schmidt starts speculating, especially in what he fondly believes to be American slang, he can go on and on and on. "Really, Schmidt, this is fantastic. I suppose the police notified you? How did they know this was a copy of one of our pieces?" "They thought it was our piece," Schmidt said. "They are men of culture, our Polizisten. One of them comes often to the museum and recognized the ornament. I was called in this morning." "You must have had a fit when you saw it," I said sympathetically, "with your weak heart and all." Schmidt rolled his eyes dramatically and clutched at his chest. "It was a terrible moment. I knew, of course, that our pendant could not have disappeared. But was this the fake, or the one in our treasure room? Until our experts could examine both, I died a million deaths." "It could still fool me," I admitted. "You sure?" "Do not say such things, even in jest. No, this is the imitation. But such an imitation! The gold is genuine. The stones are not glass. They are modern synthetics. You have no doubt heard of these imitation rubies, emeralds, sapphires. Some are such excellent copies
that only the most sophisticated equipment can tell they are not real.